And welcome back to another episode of the Geek Centurions. Actually, it's a very special episode because we're going to be talking about our time at Comicpalooza. It's going to be our first live podcast episode.
In case you haven't been paying attention to our episodes this past month, we are part of the Comicpalooza podcast partnership program, right?
That's the red.
Yeah, so we will be participating and doing a live panel, or not panel, but necessarily, but a live podcast at the convention. And if you want to hang out, check us out, listen to our podcast. We'll be there.
Yeah, so it's not gonna be just me and Joe. Or Daniel will be there as well. We're all gonna be there, and we're gonna be talking about a specific topic. We're gonna talk a little bit about that topic in just a moment. But one thing I would like to talk about is, our experience at Comicpalooza in the past. So, I think I was the first one to go to Comicpalooza before you.
Yeah.
And I had a fun time. Got to see a lot of well-known people. Probably the one that caught my eye was this guy. He writes for movies. He's on a podcast I enjoyed back a long time ago. So it's kind of a full circle in a way. Robert Cargill was one of the guys I first saw, and he was like this really cool dude and really joyful and really loves to talk about the stuff that he likes. So kind of an inspiration as to one of the reasons we do the podcast here.
If I recall correctly, he actually was the writer for Doctor Strange, the first one.
Yeah, and he was also writer for a couple of horror movies. Sinister,
yeah,
and Black Phone. Basically, if it's Scott Derrickson, he's with him. Those two are buddies. But yeah, no. After that, I took you to the next one, and from there we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's sort of it's a big convention down here in the good old state of Texas. I think it's pretty fun to go there. Obviously, convention experiences are always sort of interesting, but for like such a big convention, right? Obviously, a lot of fun things to do, a lot of fun people to meet. I think probably one of the best things to do, eat some fucking con food,
Yeah, surprisingly enough, there is a lot of good con food here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the one thing I love about Comicpalooza is they have a great food truck selection. Yeah, so that's one thing to look forward to. But so one thing that I do want to talk about is the topic that we will be addressing, and sort of like where this topic came from, why I wanted to do this, and like kind of give an idea of where we're coming from, because I don't want to like spoil all the stuff that I want to talk about for that episode, but I do want to talk about like why I feel like this is a really good one to talk about, especially at a live session at a con. So the topic that I chose, and this is a topic that I've always wanted to talk about, but I never found the right way or right moment to do it. And, the stars aligned for this one. It's one that I always want to talk about, and I told you this before. I told a lot of people this is one of the reasons why I was thinking about this opportunity is probably the best one. So you, me, and a lot of people that we've brought on here are fans of not just comic books but also manga, and we are fans of that medium, the graphic novel medium, the comics medium, the manga medium. We are very big fans of that, right? Mm-hmm. Like I have a shelf with a lot of comics, and I got like a shelf with some manga in it. So my discussion came to be is like it came from a lot of like the internet discourse about which is better, right. Why is one better, and like all this stuff. And if you know me for long enough, I don't like to focus on negatives. We both don't like to focus on the negative, on like, not to say like there isn't like valid criticism, but like at some point that kind of discourse ended up being more like a dunk on, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
Like, oh, let's shit on this, let's shit on that. And I didn't like that, because I feel like that's not helping at all, right? Mm-hmm. So the topic that I wanted to talk about was, are they really that different, right? Are comics and manga really that different? And what can they kind of learn from each other, right?
Right.
And over a long period of time, I kind of started learning a bit of the differences here and there. And so I thought that would be a really good discussion to have, especially in front of a live podcast, which I encourage anyone who's going there who knows us to come by and check us out, because like I really want to, not only just be us three, you, me, and Daniel, who's our guest there, but everyone in the audience to be a part of in that discussion.
Right.
And again, like I don't want to come from a very negative standpoint.
Yeah, I know. I think you've always mentioned about trying to do an episode like this. That yeah, it does seem like a thing that happens every now and again in the online discourse. Because it feels like a dumber version of the console wars.
Yeah.
In a weird way, because like realistically, a lot of people like to have this sort of like, you're either comics or you're manga, like, and you can't be between it. It's like, well, I mean, like, who's stopping you from reading a manga or a comic? I mean, like, yeah, there's always been like some interesting sort of debates and like you said, like how sometimes it kind of turns into a bit of a toxic dunking on either side, and for me personally, I always felt like, like, what's sort of the big deal? Like, why do people make such a big deal about, like, hey, why is, X manga is selling more than this comic book, therefore manga is superior or whatever? And it's like, well, if you wanted to, like, make it a numbers game, I mean, to make a bit of a interesting example, when you adjust the amount of money, amount of gross movies have made, the movie that has the highest box office total, with adjusted to like today's inflation and all that stuff, would be like Gone with the Wind. And it's like, would you consider that a good movie, or rather, would you consider that to be the best? Would Gone with the Wind be better than and I'm not gonna talk about like, say, any specific comic book movie, but like more sort of like other prestige movies, right? Like any Scorsese film, Pulp Fiction, like any of these sort of big films that are like seen as Oscar winners and all that stuff. Would Gone with the Wind be better than that, just because when you look at the numbers, yeah, it technically made more money than all of them. Yeah. Right? And that's sort of that's why that's a similar idea, I guess, when you come to it. But yeah, I think it'll be kind of interesting to have that discussion in a live format.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason why, right? Because everyone has their own opinions about either or. And like, I want to, I think it'd be a really good one to bring people in and bring people to talk about kind of stuff. And obviously, we're not gonna delve into like the more toxic ideas of it, right? And I always felt that personally, like, people kind of like to pick straws of it out of the that kind of Discord, right? And so. Like everyone's like, oh, this manga is selling more than the Spider-Man comic. Like, well, why are we just only solely focused on like superhero comics when there's like a broad stroke of comics, right? Right. Just like how there's a broad source of manga, and that's kind of like where my idea was for this episode, where they're a lot more similar, because I think for a general audience, right? Right. It's like, whenever people think of comic books, they think of like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Daredevil. They think of the superhero stuff, right? Yeah. But if you look at the history of comics, it's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of history there with the Comic Coast Authority. You had romance comics, horror comics, and you have some of the underground stuff that's out there that people don't know about.
Yeah, like,
and not to mention the whole independent scene.
Yeah,
like
like
Image,
obviously, yeah, the Image and all them stuff.
mhm.
Yeah,
And those tended not to be as very, superhero esque.
yeah. I believe it's sort of like a pop culture thing to look at comics as just being all superheroes. But yeah, you are right that in the history of the comics genre, it's just like any other sort of literature,
Mm-hmm.
like stuff. Like you don't think of, like when you think of a book, it's just so generalized. Like there's so many different types of books. You have science fiction, romance,
Horror.
horror, historical, like autobiography. Like you go to a library and you see all these freaking different categorizations, and then
Mm-hmm.
or Amazon, and you find out some of that weird like written stuff, and it's like, why is that a thing? Why is what
The Harlequin romance novels.
Yeah, like and then you have the ones with Fabio on the cover,
Yeah.
like for wine moms and stuff. And that's a similar thing that happened with comics, like it wasn't just superheroes, but superheroes were the ones that were, the most popular,
Mm-hmm.
like they're the ones that, like sort of like became sort of synonymous with the comic book, materials and whatever. And I guess you could argue it's a similar thing with mangas, because, and again, we'll get into this discussion, when we do the live episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like mangas themselves aren't just like, I think people like to say that like that's a inherent quality of mangas over comics, of like, oh, mangas are much more diverse than comics, but it's like, well, are you actually seeing everything that comics have done in the past, or are you just like generalizing?
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of like, that's kind of like, I feel like how a lot of internet arguments sort of tend to go, where it's just a bunch of people talking about stuff thinking that they know what they're talking about, but they really don't, even though, with the power of the internet, you could easily just search things up to figure out what the right answer is. But
And going back to what I'm saying about like if you were to like from like someone who's never read or like a comic book or read a manga, or to a further extent like anime or something like that, they kind of would just view as shonen as just being the one and only thing.
yeah,
Without like noticing any of the stuff that's from the shoujos, the seinens, and like the various different genres that manga, even like anime themselves have been noted. It's that's kind of how it feels like for me whenever people say like whenever that sort of discussions are brought up. I feel like they're usually going to generalize it as to one thing and not as the whole.
mm-hmm.
And again, this is kind of why I wanted to make this episode specifically for Comicpalooza, because it's Comicpalooza is not just a comic book convention, but there's also anime stuff, sci-fi stuff. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the Comic Con, but for the sort of the south side of the U.S. Which like in Comic Con itself, super diverse, has lots of like various things going on over there. Or so yeah, it's not just about comic books, and I think, because I think times we've been there, like they did stuff for like Game of Thrones and like various other things, and that's that's clearly like more into the fantasy sort of side of things, so like
But the last time we went, it was full on Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was because we were getting close to the final film, right? Or
No, well,
29. Oh,
no, it was 2021.
Right, yeah, you are right. We did go to the 2021.
Yeah, because we missed out on 2022.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
But like 2021 was the one where like they brought in a lot of the Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, because Mandalorian, like a year after, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like or at least a couple months after Mandalorian came out, and like it was the hotness,
Yeah.
But yeah, not just comics at Comicpalooza, but getting back to, I guess, sort of the explanation of sort of the topic that we're doing. I think like the other thing as you said earlier, like
Mm.
one of the reasons, having a live audience can really sort of deepen that sort of conversation, and it's kind of a unique thing to do that you really can't do. I mean, you could argue you could do a live stream version of it, but it's not. It doesn't feel the same, like
Yeah.
instead of just reacting to comments on on the stream page,
Mm-hmm.
and like, or at least like here at Comicpalooza, you have people who are interested who will come, and you will have like a face-to-face discussion basically with them, and that's sort of like adds a whole new dynamic and a new experience that I think really only works when you go to a convention like this.
Yeah. So that's why I felt like this topic was a great opportunity to bring that. And obviously, we'll even when we're live, we're talking about like we're not going to talk about these different aspects. We can, but we're going to choose not to because like this is not the kind of discussion we want, because like we want to really avoid again that toxic idea of like what can be there.
Mm-hmm.
Like what I want to focus on is the what is this thing that that we all enjoy, and what is it that there's like clearly there's similarities, because like manga is just as diverse, is known for its diversity. Comics are just as diverse. I meant to say.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes some comics don't land the spot, and there are some mangas that they don't land it. And yet sometimes there's some mangas I'm like, why is it still going? I thought it was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of similar things going on too.
Yeah, like we the U.S. and Japan may be an ocean apart, but the manga and comic industries do have a lot of similarities that I feel like people don't tend to notice, or if they do, they like to ignore it because it doesn't support their worldview of how any of their opinions, right, of like which one's better, stuff like that.
Yeah, and like I said, we're not gonna be talking about which is better. We're just talking about like how they're surprised, how they're similar, and what can they kind of learn from each other. Because there are some things even in manga that I'm like, I don't think that's, and it's a lot of like the overwork stuff that you would hear about like manga artists being overworked.
Yeah,
and like I rarely hear that from the comics book side. Maybe there's something in there that they can learn from them, or use that on their side to make sure their workers are healthy, kind of stuff. So I don't that's an idea that we could be talking about on the live panel kind of thing. Who knows? But yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like there's a lot of similar things with them. But we're also gonna talk about like why maybe why this one is viewed more popular than the other, kind of stuff, right? Because I think there is a reason why there's such like an increase in sales when it comes to manga, and the part of another reason why I wanted to do this, because whenever I go to say a bookstore, like a regular bookstore, not like a comic book shop, I mean like talking like Barnes and Nobles kind of thing, right? The aisle for manga is just insane, right? While the aisle for like comics is just like little to nothing.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes at certain bookstores, yeah, there's like full. I don't want to say like like there's a pretty like what 2-3 aisles of like manga stuff, and then like comics are sort of grouped up with all the other graphic novel stuff into like one little corner here. I get with that. I get what you mean by that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that's also just another interesting aspect of it. I mean, and like I said earlier, it feels like this whole like which is better kind of thing is just feels like dumber console war stuff. Because at least with the console wars, you could argue like there's like benefits to picking one console over the other, because you get certain games on one console and another game, or like
You get a certain service with another one.
Yeah, and like maybe even back in the day where it's like, oh, this one has better graphics, blah blah blah, But with comics and manga, like the whole take is just very subjective, right? Like you can't really you can kind of argue, say, oh, I like the plot line of this better because it's more narratively like told well.
Yeah.
And I can understand that sort of perspective, but you can't really. There's some things you can't really compare. Like say like art styles and stuff, right? Where it's like, oh, I like, say, this manga's art style more than comics in general, and it's like, well, they're two different art styles, but you can't call, say, that art bad art.
Yeah.
Like there will be clearly bad art on both sides of but like people sometimes don't like to talk about it.
No, they don't. And so that's kind of again why we chose to do that topic, and obviously I think we got ourselves a really good lineup for the discussion. Me and Daniel are two people who tend to read a lot of comics and manga, so we do have our our tastes and our likings, and you kind of sort of read both.
Yeah, I dibble dabble for both,
Yeah, but you're never a dedicated, you don't have a bookshelf for it and stuff.
No, I don't. I will occasionally read things. Like listen, like if we were talking about me back like 10 years ago, like yeah, I would probably read more books, but nowadays I don't really like to read.
No, not to say that you don't like to read books. It's just that.
Yeah, let's clarify. Right, it's not like I don't like to read books. It's just like I feel like I don't have time to read stuff. Yeah. Like back in the day, I feel like yeah, I could just like read some stuff here and there, and I guess part of it's like I speed read sometimes, and I don't, and I feel like if I want to enjoy a comic or a manga, I need to like slow down my reading and like take my time with it.
Because at that point, you're just looking at the pictures.
Yeah, because at that point, I'm just like, ooh, pretty pictures.
Pretty colors.
I would rather just get like a freaking kid's book then. Just read The Hungry Caterpillar over again. Oh yes, nice little pictures here. So like I said, like I don't have as much time to devote myself to reading said things.
Yeah. And we're gonna come in with we're gonna be like very honest and like very maybe not well sourced. I'll say that. Like I don't want to like toot our horn or anything like that. Trying to be, but like we're gonna talk about what we know and we want people like you guys out there to be a part of this, right? This is our first live show, and this is we want to make this a big thing, and so that's kind of what we want to do, right? And we'll see what like that holds up because we want to do more of this, man. This sounds like a fun thing, right? And especially since it's basically why we started the podcast too, because we always wanted to talk about nerdy shit, but also like come from a very honest. Descriptive and like talk about the stuff that we love and have great conversations with it. That's kind of like the whole point of the podcast because we talked about a lot of stuff. We never have one distinct niche where it's like no, we just want to talk about everything. We talk about video games, comic books, manga, anime, movies. Like, we just want to talk about whatever we like.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it's always been. And so, like, being here and talking about stuff that we like with every one of you guys, that's kind of like the dream. And, it bronze our listeners. Can't wait to see all that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see if, any people who are, like, actually subscribed or viewers of the channel show up to meet us in person and stuff, Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that'd be kind of a cool experience.
That would be a cool experience. It's like, oh, we made it.
Yeah, we would. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like we are very happy to be a part of like the Comicpalooza podcast program. It's something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and we're glad to be a part of it, especially as native Houstonians.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here, and we're gonna be very excited to bring our A game to the floor, because we will be on the main floor.
Yeah, I think that was probably the more surprising part about all this is that that we will be on the because there's like two ways of doing podcasts at this convention. You get your own panel room, or you're put on the the main exhibitor floor. Where everybody's walking around, and stuff. So I think that's gonna be kind of cool because even we might get a couple people,
Stragglers.
Not stragglers, but like people who are just kind of curious about, hey, what's going on over here? Which I always thought was kind of like the cool part of that, where like you'll just walk around and then you have these people on their doing a podcast and you'll see like, they're talking about this. Okay, let me sit down and listen. It's a good way to like take a rest from walking all around the convention floor and stuff. Get your things together while you listen to a bunch of people just talk about the things they like.
Especially some really nerdy shit. But yeah, no, we are very excited for this. I know Dan's excited. He's like, "Hey man, so when is this happening? How is this gonna go down?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know. I'm just as excited as you are." And so we're very happy to be a part of this kind of and bring this kind of discussion. And we want to do more. Like, I'm already getting ideas for like the next ones. And making them just as fun and just as nerdy as they can be. So I don't know. What do you? Any final thoughts for you?
I just hope I get to buy cool stuff at the convention floor.
I do no lie. That whenever I go to a con, that's where most of my model kits come from, and I'm scared.
I mean,
I might not have enough room back there.
I don't know. I might be on the hunt for stuff. I don't know. Like it's been like because it feels like it's been like at least a year since we've been to like a big convention like this or so. So like especially like essentially post like
the world changing.
Big bad stuff happening where everything's now basically opened up because when we went obviously when we went to Comicpalooza in 2021 like there was a lot of like restrictions and like mask policies and this and that and while it was still like a decent turnout I felt it felt kind of off and now it's like I can only imagine it feels I don't know I have a sneaking suspicion that things are gonna get packed when we're there,
Yep. And for me, it's like I'm very happy to be part of this. I'm happy for a lot of people who are going to be joining us there, and a lot of support that we've had for over these few years doing this podcast. And yeah, I know I never thought we would. I wouldn't say I never thought. I knew one day we would get here, and it's kind of like, wow, this is happening and stuff. So I'm very excited for this, and I'm very excited for our topic. Like I said, we didn't go that too much into it, but you kind of got like a little small preview of what we want to talk about. And it's something that we all of us here want to talk about and like want to bring out. And again, we want you guys to come in, and we want you guys to come and talk to us. Well, we want to have fun with you guys,
right?
And I've always felt like the most fun I tend to have is talking about the things I love and talking about the things I enjoy. So this is the best part. How else can you like enjoy a con experience than talk about your favorite topics and like a very a good place to do it, and the con is the best place to do that. So yeah, guys, and just to make sure you guys remember, we will be. I know I just said that there's this whole episode, but again, we will be at Comicpalooza next week on the 27th at 1 p.m. to 1:45. on the main floor. We will be having a discussion panel there, and we hope you guys can be there too. For our manga and comics, are they really that different? Topic. We want you guys to be there. We want you guys to support us, and we want to have fun with you guys. That's the main point of this. And yeah, and if you enjoy what you heard, be sure to follow us on the social media: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Geek Centurions, and we are most active on Instagram, where you find a link tree to all the podcasts that we're officially part of, like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, all the like. And you find a link to the YouTube for all you audio listeners out there who want to put the face to the voice. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. We kind of have Patreon, which is more there just to be there. But yeah, guys, we can't wait to see you guys. By the time this episode comes out, we will be going to Comicpalooza. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun there. Anyways, it's been me, your boy Eli.
Me, Joe.
Can't wait to see you guys there. In the meantime, peace.